Hello, guys. In today's lesson, we'll be talking about growth and revolution. So, we do start with lesson 7. Okay, we'll talk about economies of scale, these economies of scale, and so on. But first of all, we need to know what scale of operations is. What is the scale of operation? This is the maximum output that can be achieved by employing all the available resources. Okay, then what is economies of scale and what is diseconomies of scale? When we increase the scale of operation, if the average cost increases, this is diseconomies of scale. If the average cost decreases, this is economies of scale. So when do we have economies of scale? When we have purchasing economies, purchasing type of economies of scale. What does that mean? When we have a large company and we buy in bulk, like we buy in large proportions or in large numbers, in that case our average cost actually decreases, like per unit cost will be cheaper. Let's say you buy 1,000 pieces, so each piece will be cheaper in that case. The second one will be technical economies of scale. What is that? Technology is generally expensive to buy, especially for factories and so on, machinery, this and that. But when you have mass production, like when you produce in giant numbers, again, per unit cost will be cheaper, like average cost of production will be cheaper in that case. So large companies can afford buying these technical devices or technology. Financial economies, what is that? When we have the banks will, when we have the banks, we do have the banks. So the banks will be more eager actually to provide financial support or to give credit for, or the loans for the bigger companies, like large size companies, then compared to the smaller size companies, because if the large size companies have their record fine, like they pay on time and the expected amounts, in that case they do trust larger companies more than the smaller ones, because smaller ones are not well established. Plus, the other positive thing about the large businesses related to finance will be the fact that they can easily raise funding, like they can easily get funding by selling their shares. So their shares will be actually of value of millions of dollars compared to the smaller size companies. So the larger size companies can easily get the finance. The marketing economies will be the fourth economies of scale. Every company actually needs marketing services, because they need to know what they're going to sell, how they're going to find those clients and customers, and so on. But these sometimes can be costly. For smaller size businesses, it will be really hard to afford expensive marketing services, but for large size businesses it will be way much easier, because these companies can again produce in large amounts, large numbers, and for them their average costs will be lower. Managerial economies. In terms of management, small firms and large firms will be different, like large companies and small companies. Smaller firms do actually choose to have general managers. So the term director, general manager, and so on, we hear for smaller size firms. Because smaller size firms cannot afford paying more for specialists. That's why they hire one manager who knows a little bit of everything, like can have general management functions, like understands a little bit of finance, knows how to work with people, this and that. So they hire general managers. But when it comes to bigger size companies, they hire specialists. For example, the term CFO, Chief Financial Officer, COO, Chief Operational Officer, or CEO, Chief Executive Officer, and so on. These terms we do hear for big size companies, because they can afford hiring professionals and So they expect different styles of management in that case. And those specialists will be able to reduce the average costs. Okay, this is about economies of scale. What about diseconomies of scale? What is that? When we keep employing our resources, or when we keep adding resources, after a certain point, we increase our production costs, average production costs. So why does that even happen? Mainly that happens because of management-related problems. And especially when we have several branches in variety of different countries, geographically diverse, or managed by divisions of groups like people. So in that case, we have certain managerial problems. First of all, we'll have communication problems. It will be easier for smaller size firms to communicate than a large size, than big companies, of course. There will be delayed information and inadequate information, or poor decisions to be made. Alienation of the workforce. In smaller size companies, we do see that the employees can have this family environment, like they can feel like a part of a family, or they can feel that they are attached to the company, or they belong to this company. But for the big size companies where we have thousands of people working for the company, we don't really have that attachment, or the employees cannot have this family atmosphere. So no family has 1,000 members, right? Okay, poor coordination and slow decision making will be the other point. Again, for smaller size, since we have few parties involved, it can be easier to manage, but when we have thousands or hundreds of people, like at least 300 people if this is a medium-sized company, but since we're talking about large businesses, we're talking about thousands of employees. So in that case, that can lead to poor coordination, and the decision-making process will be slow. Imagine you have branches in 5 different countries, or even 2 different countries. It can take a lot of time for the local manager to spot the problem, and then to inform the central management and so on. So it can take even months in some cases. Okay. The major problem about these economies of scale will be not spotting it on time, because I will share the screen for you to see the economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. As you see, we start with economies of scale, like our per unit, let's say average production cost actually decreases up to a certain point, as we see here till this point. Yeah, like it keeps decreasing up to a certain point. But sometimes, like till this point, and then we can see that we have average costs increasing, so we are in the period of diseconomies of scale. But most of the time, managers find it really difficult to spot when the diseconomies of scale actually starts, because they keep making decisions of expansion, like they keep opening new branches or new factories and so on. And if that is the period when the diseconomies of scale has actually started, they face big problems. So spotting the start of diseconomies of scale is sometimes really difficult for the managers, like they don't know when it starts and they keep expanding. As a result, they find themselves on the verge of bankruptcy. Okay, what about categories of businesses? We have micro-size, small size, and medium-size businesses, as we see the figures here, the numbers here. We have 1, 2, 5, till 10 employees. This is a micro-size company. And the capital employed will be till 2 million euros. For the sales turnover, it will be the same till 2 million euros, but this is according to European Union classification. For small size companies, we'll have till 50 employees, and the capital employed will be from 2 to 10 million euros. The same for the sales turnover, the same figures we'll have from 2 to 10 million euros. For medium-sized companies, we'll have 51 to 250 employees, and the capital employed will be more than 10 million euros till 34 million euros. For sales turnover, it will be from 10 to 50 million euros. Okay, now we go on. Okay, when or how do we decide if it is time for expansion or not? Like, what factors do we need to consider? First of all, the owner's objectives. Like, the owner might decide to have a smaller size company, but to manage it perfectly well, or the owner might decide to have like to expand the business and take risks, because again, having larger business, having multiple companies will be actually riskier to manage, like more difficult to manage. But if you hire the specialist and you have enough capital, it's fine. So the second factor will be the capital available. If you have available capital, of course you can go for expansion and growth, but if you don't have, better not to take risks. When we talk about risk management, we will say like there will be the costs that we can foresee, and there will be the percentage that we need to add for unexpected costs, unpredictable. In business, we expect the unexpected. Okay, number of competitors in the market, the size of the market, these two factors will be of high significance as well in the expansion decisions, plus the scope for scale economies. Okay, what about the advantages and disadvantages? Like, we need to decide whether we want to have a small size company or a big size company. In this case, we need to see the advantages for both of them and the disadvantages for, again, both of them. Okay, for the small size company, what can be the advantage? It can be easier for manager to manage this company. Even the owner himself can manage a small size company. It will be easy to adapt to changes, like quickly. We can have, it can be more flexible. We can adopt new strategies, new changes, etc. We have the clients and we can offer them personal service. Like, we can be more customer oriented. Like, if we have 100 clients, for example, it will not be that difficult to have, special offers for them. But if we have millions of millions of clients, in that case, we cannot have this special offer. So it will be easier for the workers to know each other. Like, it's not really hard for 50 people to know each other. And we can have that family atmosphere. Average costs will be lower because we will not have these economies of scale, and the communication will be easier, of course. But when it comes to larger size businesses, companies, the advantage will be the fact that we can actually hire professionals, CEOs, COOs, CFOs, and many others. The costs will be reduced because we have mass production, large-scale production, and average costs will be decreased. We can set the prices in the market because we are a big-size company and we have higher market share, so we can set the price in the market. The other advantage will be the access to the finance. As we said, the banks will be eager to provide the finance for large size companies, big size companies. One more thing, if we have the businesses in different industries, in different markets, in different fields, let's say, in that case, we actually spread the risks as well. Let's take an example. If we consider the case when we have one restaurant, one hospital, and one school, let's say. In case the restaurant fails, like let's say it's because of external factors, because of a crisis, of some kind of crisis. Let's say because of pandemic, for example. Right now, we see that for around a year or more, depending on the country, certain restaurants, like almost all the restaurants, were closed. For a restaurant business not to operate for 1 year, it's like bankruptcy. Let's say the failure we experienced in this business, but at the same time, that was the period when people needed more medical services, so they went to the hospitals more than before. So the time when we have, I mean, in case we have the restaurant, the school, and the hospital, if one business fails, let's say the restaurant business failed, but we had the hospital, right? So we could make more profit in this hospital business. So we actually spread our risks as well. One business fails, but we can get more profit from the other business, and we can support this business as well. But when we have a smaller size company, we cannot do it. If there is any external threat, because we have only one restaurant and the external threat affects it negatively and strongly. So in that case, that is the negative side of the small business, but at the same time, the advantage for a big size, large size business. Okay, when it comes to research and development, small size companies cannot afford this, but large size companies do afford to invest in research and development, so they can even have the research and development department. Why do we actually need to have research and development? When we do have this department, when we do invest in research and development, we have higher chances for innovation. We have higher chances for new products, and most importantly, unique products. So this is really important for the brand building. So smaller size businesses do not have the finance to afford this, but large size businesses can actually do it. Okay, now let's talk about disadvantages. The opposite of that will be the disadvantage. For example, for small size businesses, they will not be able to find the finance in case they need. The banks will not easily provide the finance for them, let's say. For the smaller size business, the owner or the manager will have a lot, will be overloaded, will have the burden of responsibilities, because one manager will need to know many things. So that will not be quite professional, and they will not be able to hire specialists, professionals for management. Again, the risks, as we said, will not be spread because we have one business in one market, and they will not be able to benefit from the economies of scales, like average costs to be reduced will not be the case for small businesses. For large businesses, the negative side, if the bigger the business, the more difficult it is to be managed. Especially if they are geographically spread, let's say one company in China, the other in, Turkey, one in Moscow, in Russia, etc. So it will be difficult to manage this kind of companies. Potential cost increases we will have in large-scale production because of these economies of scale. And the decision-making process will be slow because of poor coordination, poor communication, this and that. And in case we have owners and managers having different objectives or different attitudes in terms of growth and development, growth and evolution, in that case we can have conflicting objectives, which is not good. Okay, let's go on with internal growth and external growth. Okay, we have two types of growth. Internal is considered to be organic growth, and this is the expansion by means of opening new branches, new shops, factories, and so on. External growth, we have two ways. Can be either a merger or a takeover. What is a merger? When we have two companies, company A and company B, merging, uniting, becoming one. This is like 50-50 power division. Company A is 50% important or has a say in decision making, and company B the same. For mergers, we have the board of directors. Again, both companies do have their representatives involved in the decision-making process. But for a takeover, it's not the case. For a takeover, company A or B, like one of them, must have at least 51, like more than 50% of the shares. So one company actually takes over the other company. That's why we call it a takeover. So one company will be dominant in decision making and so on. We can say that for Facebook buying WhatsApp, it can be considered a takeover. Since Facebook was more not more important, but bigger than WhatsApp, I guess. But we need to see the numbers actually for being sure. Okay, about external growth, let me actually share the screen so that you can see this. 1 second. Not this, but this. Yeah. So that we can see the screen in this way, it will be easier to understand with the graphs. That's way much better. Okay, can we zoom it? No, really? We must be able to zoom it, but seems like yes, we can. I love it. Okay, as we see here, we have vertical integration and horizontal integration. Here we're talking about external growth, the types of external growth. For vertical or horizontal, doesn't matter. For both of them, we have the same industry. Whether this is vertical integration or horizontal integration, the industry is the same. But when we talk about horizontal integration, it's the same industry, the same stage of production, horizontal. For vertical, we have two types, as we see. For both types, it's again the same industry. It can be backward vertical integration. In that case, it's towards the supplier, the one who supplies. But when we have forward vertical integration, again, this is the same industry, but now it's towards the customer. When do we have different industries? We have conglomerate diversification. In that case, we have different industries. To revise again, not to cause confusion. For external growth, we have two types. We have many types actually. First about vertical and horizontal. For both vertical and horizontal, we're talking about the same industry. Horizontal is the same industry and the same stage of production. Vertical has two types, backward vertical and forward vertical. Backward vertical is towards the supplier, the same industry, and forward vertical is towards the customer. Again, the same industry. The different industries we have in conglomerate diversification. Okay. Sorry, guys. So, about merger and the takeover, we talked. What about joint venture? Some students do confuse joint ventures with mergers. No water. Okay. When we have merger, two companies do unite. But when we have a joint venture, it's like having 2-3 companies working together on a specific project. So that one will be a joint venture. Is it good or is it bad? Well, it's good, but it has some disadvantages, let's say. In case we have different styles of management, we actually do most often, like in 2 different companies, you have 2 different styles of management. So that can actually cause difficulties. Because in business, as we say, you cannot say that this way is 100% right or that way is 100% wrong. Well, there might be some situations although. Management styles will depend on the people that are being managed and the manager, his style. So depending on the conditions, both can be right. But if they are adjusted to one specific type, it will be hard for them to accept the other kind. So in that case, that can cause difficulties among the companies for the project, related to the project. There can be errors and mistakes. That's normal. But when we have two different or three different companies, one company can blame the other, and it's not good either. And in case like we have, let's say, three different businesses involved in this project and one business fails, that will affect the others as well. That's the negative side. What is strategic alliance? Sometimes we have strategic alliances. I think the name clarifies it. So when we have 3, 4, 5 businesses setting objectives and working, like agreeing to commit resources or to work towards those objectives. So they set the objectives beforehand and they work accordingly. So that will be the strategic alliance, having the agreements. That can be with the university or with the supplier or with a competitor. What kinds? With the university, you can agree to have specialist training courses. This can be with the university. With a supplier, you can agree to produce new range of products to give you the competitive advantage. And with the competitor, if neither of you is in the market, like company A and company B, they are not in market C, for example. They want to enter together, so they can set the objectives together beforehand and they can enter the market this way. So that can actually, they can operate in agreed terms. That can support both of these businesses, but they need to check the law because sometimes, like, not sometimes, most of the time, like, law prohibits monopolistic activities or oligopolistic activities. So the companies need to check for the specific country if they have law prohibiting this kind of activities or not. Okay, franchising, a very interesting topic. So what is franchising? When and is it good or bad? We have certain advantages and certain disadvantages for franchising. I like it actually among all. For franchising, the business must have the same logo, the same trade, let's say, styles, systems, and the name. Let's say we have McDonald's, right, or KFC or whatever. There are many coffee brands, Starbucks and so on. So they can be franchised. What is good about franchising? When you franchise, you don't have, like, one company is well established. For example, everybody drinks coffee from Starbucks, right? The moment you start a new Starbucks shop, cafe, whatever, you are sure that people will come and buy your product. That is the advantage. So you don't have to worry about the brand building. Like, you don't need to think whether people are going to buy your product or not. Like McDonald's, everybody buys everywhere. KFC, everybody buys everywhere. But if you start your fast food business and you sell Uncle Tom's Burgers, some people may buy, some people may not like. And actually, when we see the experiments, we can actually, like, for cola and Pepsi, or for different wine types like expensive wines or cheap wines, etc., etc., people actually don't really understand the difference in taste. So we can see what kind of importance the brands actually have on people. So sometimes they drink the same thing, but in one of the experiments for wine, for example, they had two different bottles, but that was the same wine. In one it was for 10 liras, in the other it was for 90 liras. They wanted to see the effect of pricing on people's choices. So people said they liked the one for 90 liras, but actually that was the same wine. So they didn't have only two, they had one for 35, one for 45, and one for 5. So 5 and 45 were the same wine types, but people again said that they liked the one for 45 more than the one for 5 liras. So they actually think if the good is expensive or more expensive, it's supposed to be tastier. So again, people don't really understand the taste. Like we are talking about majority of people. So that is why like they are really controlled by branding, then prices, etc., etc. It has a big effect on people. So that is why it's more secure to go for a well-established brand if you don't want to take risks for the business failure, etc., etc. Okay, so what about the benefits and the drawbacks of having a franchising? Again, when you franchise, you have a well-established brand. You know that this brand is going to sell no matter what. The other advantage is that the franchisor can provide training, advice, support in case you need. National advertising will be done by the franchisor. For example, for all McDonald's brands, for all McDonald's branches, national advertising will be done by the franchisor. So you don't need to. But for local one, you can actually pay for advertising. You have already high quality supplier because it has been checked, because it's a well-established brand. Plus, the franchisor agrees that he will not open a new branch next to yours. Like in the local area, you will be the only McDonald's branch, let's say. So this is kind of good because you can guarantee that you'll have certain number of clients. So no competition among the franchising branches. But there are disadvantages as well. Since it's already well established, you cannot apply your ideas. That means you have to follow the rules, like the same color, the same design, the same structure, the same pattern. Everything must be the same. So if you have new creative ideas, innovation you want to apply, it is not the case for the franchising. You have to pay the share of profits everywhere to the franchisor because you are using the brand name. Plus, you have initial franchising certificate fee to be paid, license fee. Again, local promotions can be, and usually it is so, paid by the company. I mean, not the franchisor, but you. But will be paid by the franchisee, not the franchisor. You cannot choose the supplier, again, since it's well-established company, the suppliers have already been tested, the high-quality one has been chosen, and there will be strict rules, as we said, and the owner cannot have a great role of control or changes and so on. That will not be the case. Okay. So it's up to you to decide whether you want to have a franchising or not. Okay, about ANSOS matrix. Now we'll talk about ANSOS matrix. Is it, okay, what is it about, first of all? We will talk about risks, risk management, and then we will talk about ANSOS matrix, what ANSOS matrix is about. It's about managing the risks, actually, but we know that business is all about risks. I love this phrase so much that we use in business management. The companies, the firms that do not manage, control, calculate, predict, foresee, whatever, the risks will have to or will find themselves obliged to control, manage the crisis. So the risk must be controlled. The risk must be managed. The risk is the first stage of crisis. There's no crisis if you manage the risk properly. So the crisis happens when you don't manage the risk or when you don't foresee the risk. I will share one experience that I had. In one of the companies I worked for, one of the managers in the meeting said that I was shocked actually when I heard that sentence. It was like this: we do expect absolute chaos. It was like we expect a total mess and then it will be settled. I was shocked when I heard this. I'm pretty sure, I don't know, 100,000% if that there is a figure like that. Sure that that manager had no educational background or no experience in management at all. Because any person who has studied business management or who has worked a little bit would actually understand that if like there is no idea of expecting chaos for a manager, because manager fights against chaos. What does that mean? I like what Albert Einstein said actually. I don't exactly remember how he said this, but I mean how the sentence was, but the general meaning was like this. There is no darkness, there is light and the absence of it. So the absence of light will be the darkness. So there is no stupidity, there is wisdom and the absence of wisdom. So the absence of wisdom will be stupidity. And we say for the management that there is no chaos, there is management and the absence of it. So chaos is actually the absence of management. When you don't manage, when you don't control, then there is disorder, then there is chaos, then there is a mess. So chaos does not exist. People create that. So when we don't manage the things properly, we actually create chaos. So what I'm trying to say here, there is no chaos existing, there are people creating the chaos. So when we have the Ansatz matrix, like I want to emphasize the importance of management, the importance of risk management, to avoid crisis, not to have crisis. Okay, Ansatz matrix is a model used to show the degree of risks. But for risks, we have different models. So in Ansatz matrix, we'll talk about the risk associated with market penetration, market development, product development, and diversification. So what is market penetration? Before talking about market penetration, we need to decide, we need to make two decisions. First one will be related to the market. Second one will be related to the product. When it is about the market, we need to decide whether we want to enter the existing market or to be in the existing market or a new one. Related to the product, the same. We need to decide whether we want to sell the same product, I mean existing products, or new products to make some innovation. Market penetration is the objective of achieving higher market share in the existing market with the existing products. So you are in the existing market, you are selling the existing products. What are the risks? The lowest risks. Because existing market shows that it's already established, like people do buy these, and the existing product the same, like it means people do buy these products. So like you're selling pens, for example. Product development will be a little bit riskier than this because in product development you will be in the existing market but selling new products. I will share the graph with you. I think that way it will be easier to understand. Trying to find Ansatz matrix. Yes, that's here. Okay, good. So let me share the screen for you. Yes. Okay. As we see here, for market penetration, we are in, so here we have the product, increasing risk. So in market penetration, we are selling in the existing market, we are selling the existing products. So since we are in the existing market with the existing products, the risks will be lower here. But in product development, we will be in the existing market, but with new products, like we are developing new products. That's why we call it product development. So the risks will be higher. When we go to market development, in this case, we have the same products, but in the new market. so the risks will be higher. The new is always riskier because we haven't experienced, it's something new, we don't know what to expect. That's why risks will be higher for the new ones, either new product or the new market. When it comes to diversification, it will be the double of the risk, like the highest risk group will be in the diversification category because we'll have the new market and the new product. So two of the things will, both of them will be new at the same time, so it can involve higher risk categories. Okay, so it will be more actually challenging. Now let's talk about Porter's generic strategies. What are they? Michael Porter is a famous management researcher, and he says that the competitive advantage can be because of either cost advantage, like the things will be cheaper for the company to provide, like maybe production costs will be lower or the supplier will provide for a lower price and so on. So the cost advantage the company will have, this is the first thing. And the second one will be the differentiation, unique products. Product uniqueness, or we can say this way. And we can have it in two ways, narrow way and the broad way. Broad way will be the industry-wide, narrow way will be the market-wide. Cost leadership strategy we can have for efficient production methods or distribution channels might be efficient, or we can have high levels of investment in advanced production. Differentiation strategy, like this is for broad way, like the cost leadership strategy and differentiation strategy. They both are for the broad way. What kind of differentiation strategy can we have? Research and development. As we said earlier, when we have research and development, in that case, we can develop new products. We can focus on product uniqueness, like it can be new, innovative, or unique products and so on. Corporate reputation for innovation and quality will be high, and we can have strong sales team. So that will be the differentiation strategy. Focus strategy, either for cost advantage or for differentiation, can be, but it will be in the market segment. That's why it will be narrow way. Okay, for today, we are done. This was lesson 7. We finished lesson 7, and in lesson 8 we'll be talking about change management, if I'm not mistaken. So guys, see you in our next lesson. Take care and study business. Bye bye.